Okay, assalamu alaikum. So we are going to continue our course, Data Abstraction Object-Oriented Programming. This week we cover the pointers in C++, which is again a review because you already know what pointers are. And we are going to finish pointers in lecture, this lecture and next lecture on Tuesday. So that we have next week to cover the pointers in tutorial and labs. And then at the end of next week, so not this Thursday, but the following Thursday, we'll have the quiz. Also, the quiz will cover until the pointers. And I'm going to post this, of course, on Moodle. But if you would like to know now the plan for the next 2 weeks, this week we finish the pointers in lecture. Next week we finish the pointers in tutorial and lab, and then we can take the quiz on the review part. Of course, we are not going to stop the lectures until we take the quiz. We are going to start a new topic, which is structures. So in today's lecture, we're going to review the pointers. We had already introduced pointers last time when we were talking about arrays, because we knew that arrays were pointers, and pointers are arrays. I'm going to use the size of operator with the pointers. And today we are mainly talking about the dereferencing operator, the star operator. And pointer assignment, of course, and what it means to assign pointers. Okay. So again, this is the last slide from the previous lecture, before we start today's lecture. Last lecture we talked about pointers. What are pointers? What does this declaration int star p mean? Int star p reserves a space in memory large enough to fit addresses. يتسع للmemory address, and the name of this variable is p. And we also have a double star q, which reserves a space in memory. That space in memory is not large enough to contain a double. No, it is large enough to contain the address in memory of a double. So P and Q are addresses, عناوين in memory. But we have a type before the declaration of the pointer. We have an int star p or a double star p. What does this type mean? ما الفائدة والهدف from this type? أيوة بالظبط كده. The type of the data that it is going to point to. So for example here, it means that we are going to point to a data in memory. That data is an int. And here, same thing. We're going to point to data in memory, and that data will be double. واضح? Why is it important to tell the pointer the type of the data that it is going to point to? أهمية إنه يكون عارف إنه pointer وخلاص address in memory.
عشان يعرف إذا كان صح ولا
because when it reaches that place in memory, it should be able to read. For example, if it is an int, so it reads 4 bytes. If it is a double, then it is going to read 8 bytes in memory. So after you reach the location in memory, then in that location, you should be able to decode the data, يعني فك الشفرة of the data stored here, because we know that all the data is in binary. So is it going to read it as an int or as a character or a double? This is why we are going to tell the compiler the type of data that it is pointed to. And this is where we stopped last time. Today, I would like to introduce the ampersand operator, which we already know, but just as a brief review. What does the ampersand operator mean? Let's look at this small program. It starts here. We declare an int a. So this is the variable a. It is an int, and the value inside is 100. And then we declare a pointer p. We declare a pointer p. So what does the second statement do? The second statement reserves space in memory, gives that space the name p, and that space is large enough to be able to fit the address. It has address. طيب, what does this star mean? ما معنى الستار هنا؟ It means we are declaring a pointer. So why does it mean pointer and not multiplication? Multiplication needs two sides, two operands, two factors, عاملين. But this one appears in the context of an int. This declaration, this star, appears after a type. So it means the compiler understands we mean this is a pointer. And then the next statement is p equals ampersand a. What does ampersand mean? Ampersand has many meanings. One of the meanings is a reference, but here it does not mean a reference. Here it means the address of a variable. So where is this variable a? Where is this variable a stored in memory? This is our memory model, for example. And we have many memory locations. And suppose, for example, that a is stored here. So this is where the a is stored. On my machine, it is stored here. On another machine, maybe it is stored here. On another machine, it is stored here. The compiler decides where to put in the empty space the variable a. So only the compiler knows the address of a. خلاص? So ampersand a is the address of variable a. طيب. But this same symbol has different meanings. صح? We have seen this symbol before in other meanings. For example, you said reference. When is it used as a reference? أيوة ممتاز. When it appears as a parameter. يبقى when it appears inside the declaration, for example, int ampersand a. In that case, it is a reference. يبقى في الحالة دي the ampersand means reference. One of the uses of reference, خلاص أحد استخدامات الريفرنس هو إيه؟ In a function call as a parameter, then the value of the parameter is returned back to the argument. طيب إيه الفرق بينهم? What is the difference? This one appears in the context of a declaration. This one appears without a declaration, without a type before it. Can you remember another use for the ampersand operator? ممتاز. How did we write it? And. أيوة. So if it is used with another and, then it means the logical and. If this condition and that condition. So we must be careful that C++ uses the same symbol in different meanings. So now let's see what is the output. C out A equals A. It prints 100. Is this difficult? You can understand how it comes from. A was equal to 100 and C out A. But now we're going to see out P. Okay? What is that value? It is an address. It is an address. Can you read that number? Can a number contain F, letter F? In which language is this number written? So it is written, yes, in English, but using the hexadecimal coding. How do you know? The F and the 0x. So in C++, 0x precedes تسبق numbers in hex, and 0O precedes number in octal system. ممتاز. If I run this program, I will get some results. But if Latifa runs the program, will she get exactly the same number, 62FF18? Why not? Why not this? بالضبط. Each memory is different depending on your machine. So someone has a larger memory, so it will be put, or in the same machine, if I run it 2 times on the same machine, every time I can get a different, I may get a different result or the same result, I don't know. So it depends on the available memory. Because who decides the value, the address value? The compiler decides where to put the variable in memory. But who decides the value 100? The user, myself. The programmer decides to put 100 here. But the address is decided by the compiler. This is why in an exam I will never give you the question like this. I can give you C out A, but not C out B, because everyone can write a different answer. طيب. خلاص كده واضح؟ The next thing is the size of operator. Size of operator. If I use size of operator with pointers, what do we have? So in this program, I have 3 variables, A, S, and D. لو سمحتوا بس شوية. What is the type of A? Int. So this is 4 bytes. A, 3, and 4 bytes. And then we have a S. What is the type of S? Character, so it is only 1 byte. And then I have a big variable, the double, 8 bytes. And this is the value 1.03. And then I have 3 pointers. One pointer PA, what does it point to? بالظبط كده. طيب it points to A أو it contains the address of A. بس عشان الدقة في التعبير. It contains يعني the value of PA is the address of A. قيمة ال PA. And now what does it point to? إلى أي شيء يشير. It points to the variable A مباشرة. طيب. So now the size of A is 4. The size of S is 1. The size of D is 8. Why? Because this is an int. This is a character. And this is a double. الكلام ده عارفين. But what is the size of the pointer?
8.
Always 8. خلاص? Because regardless of what you are pointing to, بغض النظر عن الشيء اللي يشير إليه في الميموري. خلاص? We have the address size depends on the machine. If it is 64-bit machine, it is 8 bytes. If it is 32-bit machine, it is 4 bytes. خلاص كده واضح؟ So the address, each machine has an addressing system, and most of the machines available nowadays are 64-bit machines, and they use 8 bytes to represent an address in memory, even if it is the address of a single character. Next, a dereferencing operator. Now, we're going to talk about the dereferencing operator, which you already know also. A quick review. The star operator, one of the meanings of the star operator is a dereferencing operator, and it is used to dereference a pointer. ما معنى dereference a pointer? Let's see, it is the same example. ممتاز بالضبط كده. It writes the value stored at an address. Oh, in other words, this is A. What is the value of A? 100. And this is the pointer P. What is the value of P? A big hex number. But if we dereference P, if I star P, what does star P means? Star P means follow the pointer inside the memory and read the data stored inside the memory. خلاص تتبع البوينتر until you get inside the memory and read the value there, which is the value of A. So that is why we have the same thing, same lines here, here, and here. But then if you see out A, it is going to print the 100, which we already know. If you see out P, it is going to print this number or another number. But if you see out star P, then it is going to print the value stored inside the memory at this address. والسؤال, how do we know the difference between this star and this star? Because the first star does not dereference the pointer. واضح? This star does not dereference the pointer. It declares a pointer, تعرف pointer. But this star, the one here, is the one that dereferences the pointer. الفرق في السياق, the difference in context is, and the first one appears inside the declaration preceded by a type, يسبقها type, but that one at the bottom is not preceded by a type. It comes inside a statement. So it is just the dereferencing operator reads the value stored in memory. واضح؟ في أسئلة? Let's continue. So this is one of the examples we can have in tutorial problems or in quizzes or exams. We declare, of course, this is a very simple problem. Again, we have the A. What is the value? 100. What is the name? A. And we have a pointer, P. Where does this pointer point to? P has the address of A. ممتاز. What happens next? Star P equals 4. What does that statement do? Star P equals 4. مكان ال A بالضبط. يعني follow the pointer P until you reach inside the memory. خلاص. Once inside the memory, replace the value 100 by 4. ممتاز. And then A equals A star 2. What does it do? So now what is the value of A?
4.
It is 4. صح? It is no longer 100 because using the pointer indirectly I modified the value of A. So I multiply A by 2, I multiply 4 by 2, and it becomes, and I store the result in A. Now if I put just A star 2, it multiplies A by 2, but it discards, تتخلص من الresult. So here A equals A star 2. So once again it is replaced by 8. And then I see out A. So what is the value of A? 8. خلاص واضح؟ ولا هنغلط فيها؟ So for example in an exam if you write 8 you get full mark. Maybe some students don't notice this and they write 100 times 2, 200. Maybe I can get half mark. But if you write something different, completely different, then you don't get any points. And then what happens here? Star P equals star P star 2. We have lots of stars here. What does that statement do?
تضرب القيمة اللي داخل ال A.
بالظبط كده. So it reads the value pointed to by P. What is the latest value we have?
8.
أيوه. So this 8 multiplied by 2 and replaced with a 16. خلاص. And now we're going to print A, and A is 16. So this is how it happens. واضح? And so on. We can play with examples as you like. This is maybe not difficult, but a longer example. I will give you يعني those who are interested يعني المهتمين بالمتابعة يعني. 1 or 2 minutes, quickly read and tell me what happens here. How many? The same way I do it. We have مثلا 2 variables or 3 variables or 1 variable. The names are كذا كذا. The values are كذا كذا. How many variables? ولا لسه بنفكر؟ 2 variables. What are the names? The names N1 and N2. The values 5 و 15, 5 and 15. So this is the first variable. I will write it here. N1 and the second one, N2. N1 is 5, N2 is 15. Next, what do we have? I can see we have 2 more variables.
بوينترين واحد يأشر على N1 P1 يأشر على N1.
ممتاز. So we have a P1 that points to N1 and we have a P2 that points to the N2. P1 points to N1 and P2 points to N2. ممتاز. Next statement.
نحط العشرة داخل المكان اللي يأشر عليه P1 اللي هو N1.
Exactly. بالضبط كده. So now star P1. What does this star P1 mean? أيوة. Star P1 is the value القيمة that is pointed to using P1. المشار إليها using P1, which is the value of N1. The value of N1. What is the new value? 10. And then similarly with P2. Star P2 equals 7. And then see out N1 and N2. What are the values of N1 and N2? 10 and 7. خلاص واضح؟ Next we are going to do something which we call pointer assignment. What does pointer assignment do? P1 equals P2. What does it do?
بيغير المكان اللي يأشر عليه. P1 راح يأشر على point 2.
ممتاز. يبقى P1 is assigned the value of P2, does not change the values in the memory. خلاص? Because some students think that if I write P1 equals P2, then I'm going to have 7 in P2, 7 in N2, and 7 in N1. No, this is not what we are doing. What does P1 equals P2? So the pointer P1 is now pointing to N2. Because what is the value stored in P2? The value stored in P2 is the address of N2. Well, address of N2, the value of, so no data is changed. N1 and N2 still have the same values, which are 10 and 7. So if I do P1 equals P2, best, and then see out N1, N2 at this step before anything else. Then the same thing, 10 and 7, no data is changed. There is a data, of course, that is changed, which is the value of P1. So if I print P1 and P2, they will be the same number. But N1 and N2 are not changed. So now P1 and P2 both point to N2, and N1 is not pointed to by any pointers. There is no pointer pointing to N1. Next, star P1 equals 20. What does star P1 equal 20 modify? يؤثر في مين؟ Now it is the N2. ممتاز. ممتاز. جميل جدا. How did we change the pointer that was P1 to point to P2? Using this statement, P1 is assigned the value of P2. What is the value of P2? لا. The value of P2 is the address of N2. مكان ال N2. Not N2 السبعة. Not N2, which is not the value of N2, which is 7. It is the address of N2 in memory. So if I say P1 is assigned the value of P2, then P1 equals the address of N2.
Cancel N1.
N1 is still there in memory, but there is no pointer that is pointing to it. Like exactly what we did here. We had 15, and then I removed the 15 and I put 7. So here in P1, I had the address of N1. I don't know what is this address, but it is the address of N1. I removed that address and I replace it using the address of N2. So now P1 contains the address of N2, and P2 already contains the address of N2. So they are both pointing to N2. N1 is not cancelled, but there is no pointer that is pointing to N1. بس كده هنا النقطة دي واضحة. So that if I put the value 20 in star P1, in what P1 is pointing to, then it is stored in N2. So what is the value of N2? 20. And now when I print N1 and N2, it just prints 10 and 20. واضح؟ طيب, if we understood this problem, then we can understand the next one. And if you look at the lecture, it follows exactly what I do in the exams. In the tutorial, for example, I give you a problem like this one. And then in the exam, I just change something very small. Can you look at the difference between this one and this one? What did I change? Exactly the same code, copy paste.
P1 equals.
Now it is no longer P1 equals P2. It is star P1 equals star P2. So now the difference is here. Everything remains the same. But now I have star P1 equals star P2. In the past it was P1 equals P2. And we understood what that means. It means that the pointer value changes. So the pointer points to something else. But now I have star P1 equals star P2. Everything is the same except that P1, P2 is. So we have the same data. Okay? N1 سريع, and N2 the values were 5 and 15. Then they were changed. 5 becomes 10, 15 becomes 7, and we print 10 and 7. This is the same thing. Then we have star P1 equals star P2. This is the change. So star P1 equals star P2. This is P1 pointing here, P2 pointing here. Did I change the pointers? No. P1 is still pointing at N1 and P2 is still pointing at N2. But what happens is that
N1 equals N2.
ممتاز. The value in N2 is moved to N1 and replaces it. So star P1 equals star P2 has the same effect, لها نفس تأثير N1 equals N2. أشكرك، فكريني بالبونس. فين الغياب؟ معانا لطيفة طبعا كل مرة معانا يعني يعني مرة انت لطيفة مين فيهم؟
أنا
ايه
أنا حسين.
مين اللي قال ال N1 equals N2؟ اسمك ايه؟ برضه لطيفة؟ ماشي. So now the value is changed. We have 7 and 7. But then I will do something here. Star P1 equals 20. What happens here? Star
N1 equals 20.
N1. Because this statement did not change the pointers like the previous slide. In the previous slide, P1 is now pointing to N2. But here, star P1 equals star P2 did not change any pointers. So P1 still points at N1. So which one is changed? The N1 again. And now the N1 is Canberra 20. Okay? So this is 20 and 7. واضح الكلام؟ يعني in the tutorial, of course, you will get more examples. And as I said, the tutorial about pointers will be next week. No, this week tutorial about arrays, because as I said, we have lecture during 1 week. The following week we have the tutorial and labs, and at the end of the following week we have the quiz about everything until the pointers. خلاص واضح؟ في أي أسئلة؟ Okay, so by this I have finished.
بس عفوا دكتور الكويز شنو راح يكون include شنو؟